This week on the show, we are delighted to be joined by commercial still life photographer Mitch Payne, who's coming to us direct from his studio in a bunker somewhere in East London. Mitch, whereabouts are you based? Because that studio looks wicked.
We decided in Hackney Wick. Hackney Wick.
You trendy bastard.
Right.
How long have you been there?
Came here in the second lockdown, so must be going off 2 years now, coming up to 3.
How are you finding it?
No.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, formerly part of the Bromley by Bow squad, it was horrible down there. I must admit. We had a lovely studio set up, loads of lovely neighbours in our block, but we were based inside of like a concrete plant, which didn't have too much going on around.
Was that by the Bow Bunker?
By Bunker,
yeah.
But that was a cool. So if I'm right, I think Peru used to own
a place there.
Is it right? Okay. I shot there a few times. I really liked it.
I never got to see inside the bunker, but from the outside, it looked incredible.
Yeah, it was a cool little studio. Is it still there? I don't know if it's.
I mean, I've been down there for about 3 years, but I think he had some sort of planning permission, potentially.
Right.
Some flats. But...
So now you are Hackney Wick, and were you sharing a studio before? Is this your first solo kind of space?
No, the one in Bow I was sort of desk sharing and occasionally sort of sharing the main space. And then before that, in Bethnal Green with a great bunch of people in a studio called BJ House, which was an amazing place to start off with. We had, I think, 7, 8 of us sharing that spot. Dan Wilton, Alex Demora, Steph. There was a lot of us photographers all sort of squeezed into one space, and it was a bit of a vibe. We didn't really see one another that much, but it was just a really good spot to sort of, bounce ideas around and be around other people.
It's an interesting thing because ultimately, like, if you went back 20 years perhaps in photography, there were a lot more photographers that had studios, and it was kind of a lot more common. And now, obviously, with just generally the way that people work and the cost of having a studio, the cost of real estate, etc., in London means that it's kind of rare to find people still working out of studios. Obviously, now in your line of work as a still life photographer, it's kind of imperative, isn't it? You need that space to be able to experiment and spend time kind of building your sets and kind of working on creations. Let's just kind of wind things back a bit and kind of I just kind of want to get, for the listeners, I mean, obviously if you're listening now and you want to check out Mitch's work, it's Mitch Payne, which is payne.co.uk. Now how did you get into still life photography? What was your route into it? Did you always know you wanted to specifically get into that genre of photography?
No, not particularly. To be honest, I didn't even think it was. I don't think I ever really realised it was a thing, or certainly a job. I'm the son of a plasterer. My dad's dad was a plasterer, and so I think it was written that I was sort of going to go into the trade. But between doing that and some other bits, I worked at a pub, Halford's Garden Centre. Was out of school pretty early, so after doing all of those jobs, I ended up travelling with some friends, and during that sort of short time away, just thought, I want to go back, and I fancy uni. And photography was just sort of something that I picked from a list of things that I thought I might be able to achieve.
As a lot of people do, to be fair.
Yeah, it just seemed like an easy choice, if I'm honest. But also, like, I obviously had an interest in it. I used to still try and ride BMX, and used to sort of shoot video and pictures of that with our mates, and all the usual stuff. I used to take pictures of like sheep and stuff from around where I live, and wildlife stuff, all sorts really, but never really as an option, as a job. So yeah, I chose photography at uni, and I guess sort of during uni, experimenting in the studio, just ended up doing more still life, and realised that I sort of had a good idea of light, and it sort of went from there.
And where did you study that?
That was down in Bournemouth.
Okay, on the commercial photography course, is it?
Yeah, I think when I first started, it was called the AIB, and then it changed to the AUCB. Now it's the AUB, I think.
It's had some good alumni come off of that course, actually. Seems one of the
Amazing.
kind of good courses for setting people up in the commercial sector, a bit more kind of practical teaching to some extent,
Yeah,
as much
do
as
you know
you're
what?
going to get
Even
to
like,
uni.
yeah. And to this day, you're always bumping into people that are from the uni or know Bournemouth uni. It's mad. The sort of the alumni community from Bournemouth is massive. And I guess it's just getting bigger and bigger. I know that students' numbers now in each year, I sort of feel for them because, when we were there, the numbers were growing, but now I think courses they just seem to be getting oversaturated from what I hear. But yeah, and either way, great uni.
When you came out of uni then, straight into London, and did you go the assisting route, or were you just straight into shooting, or how did that work for you?
I was sort of doing a little bit of commercial work whilst at uni, bits and bobs, just sort of picking up crumbs. So I had a couple of trips to London. There was also a studio run by a local magazine from my hometown, ran by a guy called Ian, who helped me out massively and sort of give me a bit of studio space during the sort of summer breaks where we'd do a bit of commercial work, a bit of personal work. And yeah, the first sort of break to London was it was actually being repped. Will picked me up from STEM, and we had a meeting, and it was off the back of I think it was off the back of a project I did on chickens. Strangely, I think he.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think he saw an image and it got his attention, and he checked me out. So he asked me up, and we had a meeting, and we got on really well straight from the get go. And so yeah, I think he slowly started getting me little bits of editorial, and then more and more. Sort of
I think that's maybe where I must have first come across your name, because I was with STEM for a while, but I think possibly after you.
No way, that's amazing.
What was it about that project? Was it because it was excellent, or was it because it had legs?
This guy.
Sorry, you will get Tom, right?
You will get used to it. But so then after that, it was basically straight into commercial work, and then obviously with an agent.
Yeah. So it was a slow burn, but Greg, I'm sure you had the same experience. But Will was brilliant at sort of setting up meetings, and he'd sort of get you out there as a foot soldier yourself and meeting people. Yeah, proper grafter. I probably didn't appreciate the work he was I didn't appreciate the work that he was putting in at the time. I know he had a very busy roster. Just top bloke, got on really well. But yeah, that was probably the reason why I'm here today, really. I think he gave me that confidence to sort of just actually.
Well, it's amazing to have somebody see so much potential, and especially when you're kind of straight out of uni, you don't always understand the kind of market, and to have somebody like that, which is what a good photo agent should really do, is take somebody on that they see a lot of potential in, and not all photo agents do that, but some photo agents are able to then nurture that talent and help that person kind of develop their kind of style and their work and their portfolio. And obviously some photo agents don't want to kind of have to do that. They want to just have somebody who's going to start getting them work, whereas some photo agents kind of will spot talent, like Will obviously did with you, and think, right, this person's really got something going on here and I can help develop it.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think it was because I didn't have any experience with agents as well. I just assumed that I just went, the naivety was that this guy rates my work and he wants me part of the roster. That was just my sort of naive way of thinking. And I think for the most part, with somebody like Will, it is that they're there, you're part of like a family on a small roster like that. It's everyone works for everybody. But it's the interesting thing about agents when you, especially, I mean, I've had a couple and you don't really know what their sort of motive is from the start. Do you know what I mean? They could be just getting you on to make money from you. Are they like you're saying, are they nurturing your talent? Have they got your interests in mind? And I've got enough friends and peers with agents, and everyone seems to have a different opinion on what an agent should do for you or can do for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's just all about expectations at the end of the day, isn't it?
Are you currently with someone now?
No. So I was with Skinny Dip with Amy there, lovely lady. I think that's where our mutual friend Ben is as well, Greg. And and then to visual artists for a while, but currently unrepped. And do you know what? I think since COVID, I always thought I'd never go down the representation route again, but more and more, I think it just seems more and more of a good idea to me at the moment.
Why? Do you mind me? Obviously, it's probably quite private. Do you mind me probing why you're kind of like tempted? Because I'm not repped, and I'm kind of in the same boat. I kind of feel like it would be nice. At the same time, I'm kind of like loving not having anyone kind of involved telling me what to do or anything like that. So I'd be really interested to hear that.
For me, it's I mean, that guidance thing is crucial, I think, and a lot of times, especially in the bigger jobs and things like licensing and all the boring bits. I think having somebody backing you, especially with a lot of experience, is beyond helpful. But yeah, I'm not sure. I think for me, like the COVID thing was a massive shift in the way I work. I think pre-COVID, maybe I had it easy. It was very much sort of word of mouth, just being social, just meeting people at parties. It seemed to sort of like one job would come off the back of another job, and then I think from my personal experience, COVID and the shift around of how companies are working internally. A lot of contacts moved different places, maybe changed jobs, didn't they? And I just think there was this big sort of shift, and I'm not the sort of person that likes to sort of sit at a desk, put together like an email, send out. I'm not very good at my own promotion, which is why I think I've always sort of had an agent or needed an agent.
Mm-hmm.
So post-COVID, now we've had this big shift around. I think it's a bit of a struggle. You've really got to put the graft in yourself. You've got to keep on top of like where people are at, who people are talking to, working with. And if I'm honest, maybe it's just because of my laziness recently. I don't really want to have to sit down and put together these emails, like I said, but you've got to do it.
Well, it takes quite a bit of focus to do it, doesn't it? That's the thing. Like, it takes a lot of focus and time to be doing that. And ultimately, maybe that your strengths lie in the other areas when it comes to
the job. Yeah. I think if you struggle with that, then it certainly takes a serious amount of concentration. I think some people are just born to do that sort of thing. But I think a lot of us, especially in our sort of line of work, struggle, don't we?
So
yeah, I definitely do. I hate it.
Yeah, but you're very good at doing it, Tom, in terms of kind of being organised and having your systems.
Still don't enjoy it though. Yeah. Have you always done your own?
You've always done your own PR, then, Tom.
Yeah, always. Which is why sometimes it's always difficult because you when you're quiet, it's very easy to kind of like find the motivation to kind of do it and sit down and kind of hammer out the emails and kind of try and update, social media and stuff like that. And then a couple of jobs come in and then you're like, oh, cool, that's the fun stuff. Gone off on do all that. And then I'm like, oh, shit, okay, I need to actually go back. Because then as soon as you drop off the job's finish, you haven't been doing the promotion while you've been doing those jobs. So then you go into another quiet spell, which is kind of, I guess, where the feast and famine kind of comes from a lot of the time. I enjoyed parts of it.
That's the benefit of having the agent, right? That's sort of ticking over in the background. But all that being said, I think having an agent these days seems like a bit of a luxury. It's there's obviously so much competition out there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people doing very similar things. So maybe it's just a case of you're just extremely lucky to have an agent these days.
Maybe. I think there's going to be a thinning from the conversations I've kind of had with a lot of people. There is going to be a bit of a thinning out, I think, of the photographers kind of in the next maybe 18 months. There's a lot of people that I've spoken to this year who are just like, I'm not making the living I was, or I'm not making the living I want to make. So I'm going to, I've spoken to kind of probably 10 or 15 this year who are
photographers, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're checking out. They're going to go and retrain and just go off and do something else. I think there's also a part of our brains that, you know, me and Greg have spoken about this. I can't remember whether it was in private on the podcast, but we're very resilient and adaptable people. So, and also maybe there's a slight bit of ego that we can kind of go off and do anything. So there are a lot of people, there's a few people that I know who've checked out and started flipping properties. Obviously terrible timing for them. But there does seem to not hopefully, but I feel like there might be a bit of a thinning out.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something that I've thought about quite a lot. Like, you're not supposed to have the same job. My dad was a plasterer his whole life, and I think for the most part, my granddad's as well. And so I've always thought, that's mad. How can you have that same job for that long? And it's the saying that time flies. It's crazy that I've been doing my job for 15 years or something.
Yeah,
less than about you guys, but maybe it is sort of healthy to peel off and do a couple of careers within your lifespan. And it's something that I keep saying to myself, but the reality of actually doing it is a bit different.
It's daunting, isn't it? And also, I don't know how you feel, probably the same, but I feel like I was genuinely, I feel like I've landed doing what I was meant to do. Yeah, I don't really want to go off and do something else, but if I have to, then I will. But like currently at the minute, I'm like having a great time. So I'll just keep going with this as long as I can, I guess.
That's it. It's knowing when to leave it, isn't it? Because do you long it out and just keep plugging on, or do you just go, right, now's a good time?
I think there'd be a lot of younger photographers, Mitch, looking at your work and your setup and everything, and finding it almost like surprising that you think that, but in maybe in a refreshing way, maybe in a slightly daunting way for them, because to look at your portfolio from the outside, you've done some amazing work, you've had some insane clients, like your work is very diverse within still life. You've shot drinks campaigns, you've shot jewelry and watches, and also cars and bits of fashion, and you doing moving image. I saw some amazing animation stuff that you were doing with drinks brands recently on Instagram that looked great. There's a real kind of creative drive behind what you do. So I think that would surprise some people to hear that, but I also think that that's a good thing for people to hear, because I think people need to know that that's a reality that photographers go through, however far into their career they go.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Appreciate what you said as well. But I think it's one of those things, like, the saying, like, it's not what it used to be. I think it's whatever you're used to. Like when I first started and I was really hungry for it, the industry was different. And I know I'm 35 and I've not been doing it that long, in all fairness. But if you ask somebody that's 10 years older than me and 10 years older than them, everyone will say how much it's changed. And the period of time that I came up doing what I was doing, the industry's changed dramatically, and it's just a different climate. And I think for those students that you're talking about, or people just starting out, they're not going to see that. Photography is what it is today, and that's just what they're going to have to get used to. Whereas, I'm coming from a more sort of old school perspective and saying, do you know what? It feels to me like a bit of a struggle at the moment, or not what I'm used to, or I don't know, just a little bit sort of unsettled for me. And that's the only reason why I'm saying that. Like, the future's exciting, obviously, and it's good to hustle. It's, I'm lucky enough to still be busy. But all I'm saying is just, is it healthy that if things are changing, is that your opportunity to just say, fuck it, I'm going to do something a little different?
Can we? Sorry, Greg, I am going to talk over you on this one, because I feel this is quite an important thing for me personally. When you look at the website, Mitch, I'll be very blunt. I am quite complimentary about some people's work, and quite quiet on others. But your work is some of the finest I've ever seen as far as like still life goes, automotive wise. It's the cleanest. No, honestly, the lighting is absolutely stunning. The coloring's just fantastic. It's if you're listening to this and haven't already looked at the website, please do yourself a favor and go and look at the website. It's just incredible as far as it goes.
Do you want to be my agent?
Yeah, absolutely, sure. It's only a 95% cut, so and I will do one meeting a year. So
it's standard these days, I think.
But it's honestly, it's such beautiful work. I would love to talk to you about the technical aspect of it, because obviously we've spoken about the, you obviously have the studio, and kind of like my very loose segue is, I guess, photographers like yourself have got higher overheads with things like studios and stuff like that. How gear intensive is your work? It looks to me like it would be very gear heavy to get the kind of the clean, almost surreal, natural look. It's very odd to describe it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I'm the opposite. I'm less is more, and I think I always have been. My friends take the mick out of me for, most of the time using one light. It's just one light with no attachments, and then the rest is just sort of mirrors and cards and bits of glass. But
really,
yeah, there's certain things. Obviously, when you're shooting like automotive stuff, for example, is depending on if you're shooting for a brand and everything's got to look a specific way, and the client's in the room, you obviously need to have it in camera. And things like watches as well are a little bit tricky. There's a lot more sort of, again, you can get, most of the time I'm using one light, but lots of tricks over the years of sort of doing it all in, or mostly in camera.
Mm-hmm.
And then other things like editorial stuff, shoes and soft goods. Yeah, just usually a light and a bit of bounce, and then some sort of lens tricks is
so I mean, I know a little bit about light. Been doing this a while.
Yeah.
When you say that, I'm just like, wow, man. That's not just like using one light. You're so blasé about it, because that's like another level. So can I then talk about your process a little bit? How much planning goes into kind of executing one of these shots? And when you say it's one light, especially on the automotive stuff, how many is that like a crazy comp? Is there like 3,000 layers in on that? And are you then retouching your own work? Like how do you kind of like to work it?
Yeah, I've always done my own retouching to a certain degree on bigger jobs, obviously outsource, but yeah, I think it's quite an important process that you do your own retouch in order to know how to shoot. My problem in the past with using with outsourcing retouch is that process of having to explain what it is that you want to be retouched.
And by the time you've explained it, you could have probably maybe done it yourself. Yeah.
Right. And
I hear that.
And a lot of the time it comes back. I think a lot of retouchers are sort of scared to apply any sort of atmosphere to an image or experiment with it. They like retouchers will just do an amazing job, but a very sort of straight edge job. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whereas if you're retouching your own stuff, you can just mess about with it a bit. And a lot of times, I think happy accidents happen during the retouch process.
Mm-hmm.
But back to your, like, obviously, I say one light with things like cars. Obviously, you can't really light with
sure
one light, but there is a lot of plates involved. I think I'm certainly a type of photographer that likes to work with plates because it's just quicker for the client. It's quick, like it's hard on set to get the trust to say, look, we've got it. Trust me, you're looking at one plate here, but we've got this and this plate and this, and they actually come to appreciate that because you can tweak it later in post if you don't like.
Well, also, I guess with the caliber of work you've got on the website, the convincing probably doesn't take that much, because you kind of go, look, this is how I work. Trust me. Look at what I've got. Look what I do. You've hired me. Yeah. So yeah, I get that. With going to the retouch thing, I've had some. I do all my own retouching now because I've always done it myself because I'm the same as you. I always like to have control over from start to finish because you shoot a certain way to then do certain things. I almost said fix it in post, but that's not what I meant. But I've had, I don't know if you've ever had this, but I've had when work has maybe been retouched externally or people have taken the retouch in-house, it ends up looking nothing like how I would have wanted it to look, and then I won't share it. I've got something out for a TV channel at the minute, and they've done the retouch in-house, and I'm like, yeah, it's fine what you've done. I'm not pissed, but like, it's nothing like the rest of my work. It's not. I wouldn't put my name to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great luxury we have, isn't it? Being able to sort of, if you can retouch your own work and sort of manage the whole project and sort of see it from start to finish how you'd like it. But it's also no fun sitting in a dark room staring at a screen, is it? So no, it is not. Especially for because I would imagine the retouch on your shots is not like a quick 5-minute bosh. It's probably hours and hours. I assume. Hey, do you know what? It depends how well you shot it, I guess, doesn't it?
It could be a 5-minute bosh.
How intentional you are, I guess, as well with your shooting. Because you're going in, exactly. I know exactly how I'm going to achieve this.
Yeah, and going back to the benefit of shooting, you shoot and you retouch. You know what you need. You know what you've got to get shot. You know where the files are. You don't have to do any fancy file naming. But yeah, again, what pro retouchers can do is pretty special. So
yeah, I mean they're very much. We've had V on the show, and what he can do is it's completely above the level I could do. But does my work require that? Often not. So it's interesting.
Shot too bloody well.
Well, wouldn't say that personally, but if you're going to say it. So obviously we've talked a little bit about the kind of the process. I didn't actually fully kind of let you answer about how much like planning goes into the shots. I would imagine probably quite a lot.
Likewise, I mean, yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of thought that goes into certain sort of images, and specifically, like if the set of images gets bigger, if there's a large sort of 12-page editorial, you've obviously got to think how their images are going to look across all of them and not be busy and not be too boring. How they're going to look different, but technically speaking, from a light point of view, I think I tend to just go for it. Do you know what I mean? Just sort of see what arrives, see what the stylist has got, see what the set looks like, drop a light on it, and just sort of go from there. And then for the ad stuff, as you guys know, you've got to sort of tell them what you're going to do, put together your light treatment, and then you're sort of given a little less wiggle room. But I think planning wise for me, I probably don't do enough.
Well, I mean, I think that's probably true of a lot of us. So everyone listening is probably going, yeah, do you know what, Mitch? Me too. So we're going back to the gear, because obviously I'm a bit of a gearhead, and I'm going to hijack this question from Greg. With the kind of the gear over the years, obviously you've picked up probably things that are your favourite things to use, and you've probably picked up some really weird bits of kit. Is there anything that you'll use on every single time? I know you've talked about like just using a single bare head, but like, is there anything that you'd probably really miss if you weren't allowed to use it, or if there's like a really weird bit of gear that you've kind of picked up? I think when we had Art Stryber on, he talked about turkey bags and like just random stuff like that. I can't remember why he wanted turkey bags. Probably cooked turkey. Yeah, turkey bags.
As in real life turkey bags?
Yeah, as in real life turkey bags. But for the life of me now, cannot remember why he liked turkey bags.
Check the light.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, it totally made sense. But yeah,
I love the idea of having some really niche tools, but unfortunately my answer is probably pretty bland in that I don't. I mean, I don't know if you can see that thing that's on my ceiling there for listening. It's just a scrim.
That's a 2x4, 2x2 skylight, right?
Yeah. But just having it. I mean, whenever I'm shooting, that comes down. The camera comes out, that comes down. I usually use it on most shoots, and another tool that I use a lot is actually just here. It's just a wand. Like a sort of.
Oh, is that like an ice light?
60. Yeah. So this is actually a hell of a lot cheaper than my ice light and a hell of a lot better.
Oh, right.
Little Amazon ice light gets used a lot. But no, not really any sort of niche tools other than just bits and bobs that I put in front of the lens and strange bits of material I found over the years that sort of bounce light in specific ways. But other than that, it's pretty much just a couple of light heads and some white cards.
Nice. Well, that's great. I mean, with no turkey bags, that's a shame. With the so are you I can see obviously you got like a Fresnel on a 600 back there.
Yeah, that's one of those apertures.
Yeah, the 600D, I would assume.
Yeah, Storm X Pro, something like that.
And so are you continuous over flash?
Both.
Right. Okay.
That's what I really love about these LEDs. Match up to the flash, and then I sort of try and use a bit of both these days. I think during that process of all clients needing moving image and having to use a bit more sort of moving light, realize just how easy it is to work with really bright lights. I mean, it's not as pleasant. Some would say, I guess. You've not got the flashes going off, but you can see what you're doing. And I found like when you're moving lights or someone's moving a light, when you just catch something or a light will bounce off something, what was that? Like go back and
the happy accidents, right?
Yeah, right. And it just seems to happen all the time with constant stuff.
Do you feel there's like a little bit of magic maybe lost in the way that people can see it coming together? Maybe the client can see it coming together in front of their eyes, as opposed to with flash. Obviously, the flash goes off and then magic just appears.
Yeah, I mean, even for myself, sometimes the flash would go off and we've done a setup and something will come up and I just sort of have to pretend that that's what I meant to happen.
I mean, we've all had that. Yeah, I totally meant to bleach everyone's skin out. That's totally normal. That's exactly what I was going for.
Yeah, I don't know. There is something, I guess, kind of interesting about the way that flash works, but I just think from an efficient point of view, working with constant light just seems so much quicker and a little bit trickier at times because there's a lot more flagging involved and a lot less sort of tools that you can put on the end of your lights. But
I guess also that as part of the process has really only become available in the past couple of years because now you've got high output, cool running LEDs, right? Because before you could have, if you're trying to shoot a lipstick under 3, 4, 5K HMIs, that lipstick's going to melt pretty quick, right?
Yeah, I think for me I think we hired some LEDs, or a friend of mine got some LEDs on a job, and it was the first time I used them, and I just realised the potential of them. No one was getting hot. You could set the temperature to the flash, and it was on a geeky level, it was sort of a bit mind blowing, that one, and definitely changed the way I work.
Yeah, I bet.
Today, I think.
I bet. So can we, I know we've talked about how the industry as a whole has changed. Can we talk about like how maybe still life has changed in the kind of like the past 10 years? It's a world that I know almost nothing about because I don't ever go down that route. And Greg doesn't really do a ton of it. So it'd be really interesting to hear kind of, obviously you said there's a big tidal shift with COVID, but kind of how is it changing before?
It's an interesting question, isn't it? I feel like everyone would have a different answer.
Have there been like specific trends and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're all sort of guilty of jumping on the trend bandwagons as well. I think it's important that you can adapt to whatever is current at the time. I'm sure we'll segue to it, but like AI, like keeping on top of that. But I don't think still life's changed. If anything, it sort of just keeps doing loops. It's like this cycle of sort of methods of shooting and styles, and I think at the moment everything seems like it's going more down the abstract route, which is great for me. I love that side of things, but I think the biggest change is just the popularity.
Right.
I don't know whether that's just social media and my algorithms, but I swear everybody's just still life photographer these days. But I mean, like photography as a whole just seems insanely popular right now.
Well, is it kind of like, so I used to kind of speak to people and we'd be at a dinner party and I'd say, oh, I'm a photographer, and people would be like, no way, cool. And they'd either be like, oh yeah, my sister-in-law or my brother-in-law, he's a photographer. And so you'd always meet people kind of like that. But now it just seems that if I introduce myself as a photographer, people go, oh yeah, Instagram, is it?
Yeah.
And it just seems that everyone now seems to be a photographer.
Yeah.
So even though, because I think in the portrait world, grab a camera, take a picture of someone at low enough light, the kind of low enough sun, and then boom, you're a beautiful sunset portrait photographer. But surely with still life, there's like a higher level of technical skill. You have to have space to have a setup. Surely there's more barriers to entry to the still life world. Then again, this is from an ignorant portrait guy. Are there more kind of barriers to entry?
I don't know. I think COVID again probably proved that there were so many projects shot over COVID, the at-home projects, that proved that you don't need a studio. Sometimes you don't need lights.
Mm-hmm.
To like any form of photography, I guess you can shoot it anywhere you want as long as you've got the ability to put together a nice composition and know a bit about light. I think there's as many constraints getting into still life as I think as any other sort of line of photography. I think the barriers become when you've got to collaborate with other skills within the, you've got to have the contacts, you've got to know a good stylist, you've got to know a good assistant that can help you out, good sort of DIT, whatever it is that you need. I think that's where the barriers come, just like having that network behind you, having that strong network of people who can come in when you do need that help.
Mm-hmm.
But I think from a material and a technical point of view, I don't think it's any different to like what you guys do at all.
Right. Interesting.
I wouldn't know because I don't do what you guys do either. So.
Oh yeah, don't tell anyone. It's dead easy.
I could say the same.
Do you find that you kind of have a studio that's full of, I mean, obviously you said you were a minimalist, but how do you not kind of end up just acquiring so many random bits of...
Oh, I would do that. Jeez, it would be so bad.
If I could turn my camera, I'd show you the storeroom, which is full of shit.
It's a dream, isn't it, though? You say it's full of shit, but like me and Greg would lose our minds, right?
It's hard. I'm quite a disorganized person as well, so keeping it organized. But you'll have a client on set and be like, oh, if only we had some like glittery green ribbon. Just be like, be back. Would it take me a good half an hour to dig it out, but it's there somewhere. But yeah, I guess that's over the years, like you've got to know what to throw away and what to keep. But yeah, hoarding is definitely part of the job.
It's a real thing, though, isn't it? I think photographers in general suffer from hoarding.
Right.
I've actually. So I was out at the pub last night, and I was explaining to people that what you cannot see in this office is that I take everything down when I do these recordings, and I put everything on the floor. So this week, I have bought 3 of these old B3 kits, and the floor is just full of just stuff. And I think it's maybe just like part of our psyche that actually hoarding is not the world's worst thing. But I can't stand up currently, because if I stand up, I am going to fall towards the door. There is too much. I'm not even kidding. I'd do it for the listeners, but I feel like maybe you're slightly unprofessional towards you, Mitch, so I won't. So listen, we talked a little bit. You mentioned the AI elephant in the room earlier. So obviously, photographers in general are very wary of it all. I kind of feel that it's starting to get to a point where people are getting used to the idea of it, and so there are products now being made available to us that are going to be making our life easier rather than taking, or maybe not taking work. I kind of feel like if it's going to take work, it's going to take the real low hanging fruit stuff that actually maybe wasn't going to pay in the first place. How do you kind of feel about how it might affect still life stuff? Because obviously it's probably easier for AI to recreate inanimate objects rather than hands and facial expressions. At the same time, it's never going to have that true creativity that obviously shines through in tons of your work.
Yeah, I think it's already apparent that some parts of, specifically some parts of still life are being affected. Like, I think easy things like footwear and soft goods, that sort of stuff is like what you said, the low hanging fruits side of those bits. I think we're already seeing it. It's AI is doing it, and fair enough. But there are certain comforts. I think, obviously AI struggles with liquids, and like you said, like hair and skin and hands. So I think there's certain parts of sort of my job that I think are safe, and others that I think we've just got to let go. But at the same time, it's there. The tools are there for you to use. If you're worried that it's taking your job, then get on board. Like, it's not for me. You're towards somebody that's dabbled in it, and I already think that I'm sat at a computer long enough. And the few weeks that I tried it, I just didn't leave this chair. Like, yeah. I'm not into that. Somebody else can have that job.
Yeah, I know. I'm the same. When I was kind of dabbling with it, I also run kind of like a tech consultancy for the creative industries called Mainframed. But I have to try and stay on top of all of this stuff. And for me, it's just like, it's a bit soulless, isn't it? Like, there just doesn't feel like there's anything there. And I feel like I'm quite good at spotting AI stuff because it just feels a little bit flat. It feels a little bit dead. It doesn't really feel like there's something. It feels like there's something missing.
I think you can get away with it more though in the still life world. I might be wrong there, but I did a campaign recently that had a big still life element, and a lot of the stuff in the mood board that I was given was AI and created by AI because they had a concept and that was the best way of them illustrating it. And the thing is, for still life stuff, it can almost look a bit more stylized. You can get away with it a bit more, I think, with AI. Whereas maybe when it's kind of got people, that's when it really shows up to be a bit lifeless. Because there's just something that just doesn't feel right or authentic about it. But with objects, it maybe gets a little bit blurred. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like that with still life in general, like without the AI, like if and maybe I'm guilty of it as well, when you over retouch or over process your work, does it lose its, I don't know, like what that is, like the character of it, the rawness of it. And the obvious thing to say about AI is that it lacks character, it lacks that human sort of element. But like you said, Greg, with still life, it's, at the end of the day, it's just an object. That shoe could have been shot in a studio or with AI. Maybe in the future it would all be about the name, and the fact that it is shot, and that will be its selling point. And the work is there for the very tippy top or the people with the highest amount of followers. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's got a little way to go before it really starts putting a dent in sort of still life in general. But it's coming, right? Check your mirrors.
Basically, yeah, it's here.
Yeah,
it's here. We get on board. Basically, I think it's the overall. Much as though I'm sure it'll pain various people to hear that, it's kind of like, yeah. But there's loads of ways. Like, we actually use AI quite a lot on the back end of the podcast. So there are lots of ways that it can improve your life. Obviously, from the art generation point of view, I'm not really a fan. But then from helping me kind of like automate and kind of really quite time-consuming, dull tasks, I find it useful for that.
Yeah, I think specifically what you said, Greg, about the art direction and sort of scamping up projects. Like an art director friend who's reliant on it, but often he's making sort of mood boards that are going to look better than than the final product. You're fabricating something exactly what you need, and now the photographer's job is to match that. And you've got to ask yourself the question, like, at what point do you just let the AI do the heavy lifting? But
there is an element of that sometimes when you have, and I mean, it started when, it probably started before this, but I really noticed it when smartphones started to get good, and you'd have an art director on set that might take a picture on their smartphone and then literally turn around and be like, well, that's it. That's the shot. And you're like, oh, okay, well, you don't really need me here then. Well, I wonder whether or not there's an element of that with AI, as you said, that it's kind of like, well, actually, this is exactly, I've been able to dial it in to the nth degree. And for the art director, I can see the appeal in creative directors who are using it, because they're getting a lot more creative control, perhaps, than they had before, which must have been a bit frustrating for some of them, where they could have a vision and a concept, and then get a photographer to kind of implement that, and it doesn't quite match what they had in their mind. Now, there's two ways of looking at it. One way is that could be really frustrating, and another way is that actually the process of collaboration is what makes it so much more powerful, because you're working with somebody who is going to add to it and generate something, better than what you had in mind. That's when the best, magic happens. But that in itself is probably quite, rare on the grand scheme of things. In most collaborations, you're going to get something that might not quite meet one person's expectations or the other person's expectations. And AI kind of gives you the option to have complete control. So it could lead to a generation of maniacal creative directors. Who knows?
Watch this space.
They didn't have that in oh God, I've forgotten the name. Terminator.
They
Sorry.
didn't.
Not how Terminator ends. Anyway.
So listen, Mitch, right? So I'm on your website. I'm looking at your personal work. Let's talk about, are you happy to talk about personal work?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Cool. What is it? Obviously, we totally understand, and hopefully,
what are you thinking?
Hang on, no! My God, that. Sorry, no. Whoa! Hang on, right, backtrack, guys. That's not at all how it. Oh Jesus! Right, I'm not meant. That's not how I meant it to sound. Oh Jesus Christ! In today's episode of Exposed Negative, Tom utterly insults the guest's personal work. No, the personal work is absolutely beautiful, right? So it's amazing, and I would just say, obviously, we understand as photographers, and hopefully everyone listening understands the importance of personal work. How much, this is the question, how much are you able to shoot? I assume you're able to shoot a fair bit. How much do you kind of shoot a year, and how driven are you by creating new work? Not what is it? I meant, what is it that drives you to create more personal work? And that's what I was trying to say in my utterly ham-fisted way. My God, I'm just going to turn my mic and camera off.
Yeah, do you know what? Probably not as much as I should do. I think it's important for anyone to get as much personal stuff out of the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mainly just to show sort of like what it is that you're thinking at the time creatively, like what your current sort of flavor is. But also I find it's important because when you do get a job in commercially or editorially, I find if I've not done some personal work for art, I try and steer that brief towards what it is that I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like even the job that I've got on at the moment, it's 8-page editorial, and the idea is so close to something that I want to do or personal that I haven't done. So what I'm finding myself doing is sort of trying to steer everyone in the whole project towards this idea. And really what I should have done is just got myself together and shot that, scratch that itch, and then now just treat this as a commercial job and be the yes man. But that's one thing, big benefit, I think, of shooting personal work. But
then that's a form of collaboration, isn't it? So maybe don't do yourself down for that, because actually you're then bringing something even better to the table, because you've kind of got this kind of seed of an idea in the back of your head, and you're
visually, yeah, I think it will be better. But commercially and what sells, and that's the thing about our job, isn't it? Like, what looks better, but you've also got marketing and a lot of people that need to tick boxes as well. And at the end of the day, that's what's paying the bills. So yes, I know that me and the art director know that it would look better, but I know the art director's under the cosh because he's got to please marketing and it's that whole sphere.
Yeah. What inspires you then is another way of looking at it. What kind of makes you want to create personal work? Do you find that you have fits and starts with it? Do you find you have creative highs and lows where you kind of have to then force yourself to start thinking about doing personal work, or is it something that just comes naturally and you want to create? Like, are there periods where you're just like...
A lot. I'd say 80% of the time I'm not feeling too inspired. I seem to get inspired coming off the back of a holiday, which I haven't been on in a long time, but for some reason, the last few days of a holiday, I'm always like, right, when I get back, I'm going to proper like grindstone. And also, I know this is real cliche and I don't do it that often, which is why I think it works for me, but just being at galleries, even just looking at stuff that isn't relevant, it's such a cliche to say, but I always seem to like come away from gallery thinking, you know what, I've got this weird idea, or got this like urge to sort of contact this person who does something similar. And other than that, no, I don't have any sort of obvious draws of inspiration like Pinterest, or I don't follow many still life photographers on Instagram. That's I think that's a healthy thing to not be doing.
Yeah. If you had to give like one tip to somebody who's starting in still life, like, because whenever I work with still life photographers or have worked with kind of really good prop stylists, you know, and they've come along and they're going, oh yeah, you if you're shooting this is how you need to use this particular type of tape, or you need to spray the product with this type of thing, you know, to give it a certain look or to make it work a certain way. Are there any kind of bizarre things that you've picked up over the years, perhaps, that you go on, I never thought that would work, but actually that's a really interesting way of doing it? I'm putting you on the spot here, but like you always hear this about people who photograph food, for example, and using certain things to kind of enhance the way it looks.
I only think I sort of find those things when shooting food and drink. Right. I think food and drinks styling is something that everyone thinks is easy. But when you've worked
creating life in liquid and stuff can be quite interesting, can't it? Getting light into liquid and into bottles and
that sort of stuff is, I guess, just like shooting a watch or a car. You know, there's working with glass is particularly hard, especially cylindrical glass. Like, but the food tricks and the drinks tricks that the stylists use are ones that just come with experience, and you know, I feel like. Yeah, I've sort of had my mind blown by just someone putting sugar in a bit of champagne and it brings it back to life, or a tampon up a chicken's ass. Or there's just all these weird like.
Anyway, less about the personal project.
Yeah. What? I'm going to cycle this back to the sheep at the beginning of the episode that you talked about. There's a strange farmyard animal thing going on here.
Yeah, no, but not too many tricks that I can really recall of my own. But yeah, good thanks to the stylists.
Is there anything you've ended up using which is kind of like I don't know, that you've gone, I'm gonna, I don't know, use? Because that's the thing, you can kind of end up with a set that's very large and you've got all of these lights going on, then it turns out you end up using the torch on your phone or something just to light a little bit. You kind of find that it almost can be MacGyvering situations. As you said, with your light stick, your light wand, you know, things like that. Is there anything else that you've kind of done recently that you've kind of somebody on set's gone,
other than like cheeky Photoshop tricks, there's certain stuff like I've gotten big into using different types of layers.
Okay.
Really exploring
blending modes and stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of when I figured out how to use those, that sort of changed the way I use Photoshop. Sped things up a lot, and it also gave me the ability to just very quickly do something and show clients on set. So yeah, it's not getting in camera, granted, but
that's process good tip,
those two images and just blend these things together and bosh, like you can see it. So yeah, other than
Blending modes, okay.
Yeah, no real fancy tricks like that, I think.
When it comes to retouching and stuff, do you use many like luminosity masks and things like that, or is it kind of like you hand paint, or how do you kind of choose to do it?
No, I try and steer away from doing anything by hand. Really, it's I do it again, like a lot of layers. I've actually recently shot a fair bit of fashiony sort of stuff and taught myself how to do skin, and other bits, and that's actually fed into my sort of still life retouching as well.
Okay.
The luminosity layering and
frequency separation.
That blew my mind.
It's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, amazing. Like it's not that handy. I actually used it in a car retouch not long ago, which I would never have thought worked, but just insane once I got my head around how to do that. Yeah, a lot of that.
For anyone who doesn't know what frequency separation is, when it comes to retouching, it basically separates out the texture from the main tonal value. So you're able to isolate the texture effectively of things like skin and car paint and things like that. And so you affect the tone and the texture on two separate layers. So you're able to get rid of like really small dust, hairs, all that sort of stuff, as well as make quite swathing changes. It's ultra powerful. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes it's not necessary, or sometimes it's a bit overkill. I use it quite a lot because it's for me. I love being able to have the full control, and it's pretty accurate when it comes to kind of removing reflections in windows and stuff like that.
It's crazy where I never thought it would work on certain things, like even taking the dust off of areas with lots of texture. You can, rather than use the patch tool or the dust and scratches, you can use that, and it's a little bit lengthy, but once you've got all your actions set up, it's definitely sped things up for me.
Yeah, brilliant.
Do you think that's, we'll probably wrap it up soon, but I guess as a final question on that front, what's the biggest change you've seen in kind of the last 15 years? Has it been the retouching side of things improving and getting more powerful? Has it been the camera sensors getting bigger and giving you bigger files to work with? Has it been the constant lighting perhaps coming in and changing the way that you work? Or has it been the kind of cheaper
just
lighting?
on like a technical level, on equipment. LEDs. That's
big game changer.
Yeah, for me, for sure. I mean, the price point of those as well, and now that the power's coming up, and you can actually. I've always used like old sort of digital backs where the ISO's not great, so for me, using blonde heads, like 2K blonde heads, still didn't really cut it. And now, you even just this light here that we spoke about earlier on, like power that can push out. And as cameras ISOs comes up, I don't know, it all just seems to sort of be getting you can work a lot darker and a lot sort of quicker and cooler and cheaper, I guess. So the tech's changing massively, isn't it? But I'm probably the wrong person to talk to about that because my kit level is pretty low key.
Which sounds bizarre to when you see your work, and obviously like the level of what you produce and how clean and precise and everything it is. It's feels hard to believe, but
smoke and mirrors.
So my work's the opposite. So when you look at my website, you go, "Oh, it probably uses one light," and then there's me with 25 flashes.
You just bought 3 packs. What are you going to be doing with all of those?
I don't know, blowing them up. If it's anything to do with my current track record. I was up a mountain in Austria the other week, and I managed to blow 2 things up, so that went well. If you're listening from my regular hire houses, they were just bad packs. Obviously, I'm definitely not doing anything that would be blowing them up on purpose.
Hey, what are you doing with them?
I don't know, just dodgy electrics in a ski chalet, I think, is what I'm definitely going with.
Yeah.
But listen, on that literal bombshell, let's start wrapping this up. So obviously you've been briefed. At the end of every episode, we strand our guest on a generic island that may or may not be deserted. And for legal reasons, we cannot say the name.
Theme tune.
Exactly. But what we would say is, do you have, if you were to be marooned somewhere, do you have a camera that you would take with you? What would you?
Don't
What
give
would
him
be
the
your
option of saying, "Would you take one?" Because if he says
yes.
no, that defeats the.
Sorry.
You have
Imagine
to take
that.
a camera. What's your desert island camera?
Now's time to swap careers.
I would have took the opportunity to have left it at home, but do you know what? It's a funny one because I've got quite a hatred for cameras. I don't think I've ever found the camera for me.
Really?
I've had a Nikon D800 ever since I started taking pictures, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I've still got it. I've left it in a field for days after a party. I've dropped it numerous times. I've had it stolen. I've lost it. Like, it's still there. It's still going. Absolute workhorse. Same batteries. But then the digital backs I've sort of not got on with because I think they're it was just the cost of maintaining them. Like, they were amazing. The Phase P65 was an amazing camera, but I just needed to have it serviced a lot. It cost a lot of money. Then went to the Fuji, which seems to have a similar problem, and now I'm almost back to Nikon. So the short answer is I just don't like cameras.
It's fair.
Cameras don't get on.
I went through a lot of system swaps, and to finally start, I ended up where I started. So I went Canon, and then went through about 5 or 6 different brands, and then ended up at the Canon. And now I'm finally happy. But I totally feel when you say that, I'm like, yeah, I get that. That really resonates with me.
I think there's no camera that does just the bits that you want and doesn't come with all of the faff. I think with Capture One for me is the camera, and then the camera over there is just the sort of thing that the information comes from.
The capture device, right?
Yeah, and
okay.
Even though the GFX is what I've got at the moment, the 100 is an amazing camera. Don't get me wrong. It's unreliable. It's fiddly. The lenses are cheap. I don't know. Some people rave about it. Some people dislike it. And now
you've got a favourite lens?
I always try and shoot on 85 primes. There was an old, what's the brand? The brand that sort of I want to say the term knockoff, but Samyang.
Okay, yeah.
You heard of that?
Yeah.
I mean, this is going back now. I had a Samyang 85 on my Nikon, and I do recall it being super crispy and whatever, all the weird metaphors people use for a lens. But I think now,
crispy. I love that crispy look.
I think I'm so reliant on sort of capture now that it's sort of, regardless what the lens is, just make sure you're shooting at the sweet spot on the right f number and helicon focus stuff, and use the right settings in capture. I think all lenses amount to the same for me.
Mm-hmm. It is an interesting time for lenses and lens manufacturers, because there's a lot of kind of cheaper lens copies coming out of Asia, which are from kind of small batch factories and what have you, and they are replicating older classic lenses and what have you. So there's almost like this cottage industry now in making manual focus lenses, which wasn't around 20, 30 years ago, which could be quite interesting, I guess. And it's kind of an interesting sign, as far as I'm concerned, of people almost pushing back against the whole kind of digital perfection that we can find. You know, everyone was obsessed with sharpness and pixel peeping, and now people are kind of just looking for anything that gives their digital camera a bit of character.
A bit like those lens baby things. I've never used one, but always been intrigued what they are. It's sort of more. Is it like a tilt shift type effect? Or?
Yeah, basically, it's basically like a way of free lensing, because obviously you then have the two lens elements become separate and they're still connected. So you basically are free lensing, but without having to obviously disconnect the lens from the body.
Sort of like one of those novelty wobbly eyes sort of things.
Yeah,
Exactly like that.
basically. That's how they pitched it in the sales meeting. Guys, I've got this great idea for a new lens.
I would-
You know those wobbly eyes?
I would love it, Mitch, if you turned up to a shoot and then took the lens cap off your camera and this goggly eye just came out and started springing back and forth. And you're like, no, it's meant to do that. It's fine.
I'm pushing the envelope.
Okay,
So-
what's your desert island book?
Oh, I'm going to have to make a really, really embarrassing. I'm going to have to admit I've never really read.
You can't read.
In my
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Spice Girls Annual '97 or something like that.
I've tried reading so many books. Like if you
It's a picture book, Mitch. It's a picture book. There's not many words.
Yeah. I'm trying to read Anthony Bourdain at the moment. I'm
Okay, but a
fascinated with
photography
that guy.
book. If you had to pick a photographer's book of good images, is there anything that you first picked up years ago, perhaps, that got you into photography? Or
You know, I've read the Susan Sontag, but I feel like that's like, you know, at school you had to read Of Mice and Men.
Yeah.
I think at uni
Susan
I had to
Sontag
read-
on photography is kind of like that for us, right?
Right, so yeah, I'm going to have to say that because it's probably one of the only ones I have read. But
I
yeah,
mean,
literacy is not my thing. I'm giving you terrible answers to these questions, but I wasn't briefed. Tell me, where was the brief?
so hang on. Greg, did you not brief Mitch about this?
Greg, it's you.
I think we. Right. Okay. Well, that's okay. Apparently, I'm just kicking Kit. Right. That's Apologies. But I think they were good answers. So we got
yeah,
Deer 100 and Susan Sontag on photography.
I'm just going to put a goggly
So
lens
old school.
and
a goggly
Anthony
lens.
Bourdain.
Well, listen, Mitch. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us.
Thanks for having
Tell the audience where can they find you? Well, I mean, we've mentioned it multiple times, so if they haven't looked it up, but where can they find you online?
Do you know
What's
what?
the best way?
I'm really lucky, and maybe it shows my age, but I got that Mitch Payne handle on everything, pretty much. Mitch Payne
Well
on
done.
Twitter, Mitch Payne on Instagram, and yeah, I'm not on TikTok yet.
You don't want to do dancing on TikTok?
I'm tempted. Maybe that's a new direction I'll take. But yeah, I'm mainly just on Instagram. So if anyone wants to chat on there, then let me know.
Perfect.
Amazing.
Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to the latest episode of the Exposed Negative podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can do that by heading to our Patreon or doing one-offs. The details are on the website, and the Patreon is patreon.com/exposed negative. We'd love it if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/exposed negative. And obviously, we're on Instagram, which is xnegative. If you want to follow us personally, mine is tombarnes.com on Instagram. And the website, and then Greg's is at Greg Fennell, and that's Funnell. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and hopefully you enjoy the next one.